I never thought a wrong turn down an alley would ruin my sense of safety forever. Or maybe, if I'm honest, it wasn't ruined, it was rewritten, tangled up with the scent of danger and the kind of love I swore I would never fall into. New York City never sleeps, they say. But what they don't tell you is that the city also listens, watching from behind broken windows and rain-slicked sidewalks, whispering secrets that no one is meant to hear. I learned that the hard way the night I stumbled into his world. His secret started as a joke, really. I was 22, broke, and carrying the weight of dreams too heavy for my small apartment and thinner wallet. I had an old camera slung around my neck, thinking maybe photography would save me. Maybe art could drag me out of the mud. But that night, instead of capturing beauty, I captured something I shouldn't have. And him, Adrian Vega, the man everyone whispered about. The dangerous kingpin who owned half the city's shadows. The first time I saw him, it wasn't like in the movies where danger announces itself with thunder and flashing neon signs. No, it was quiet. Too quiet. A group of men in black huddled near a car, exchanging words I couldn't hear. But my lens caught everything. The lean lines of power in Adrian's posture, the controlled calm in the way he handed something off. And then, the moment his eyes flicked up and met mine across the distance, I should have run. I should have deleted the photos and forgotten I ever saw him. But my feet froze, my heart hammered, and my breath caught on the realization that his eyes weren't just dangerous, they were sad. Lonely even. That was the hook, wasn't it? The bait I didn't even know I swallowed. By the time his men caught me, it was too late. My life was already no longer mine. The warehouse smelled of oil and secrets. My wrists were tied, my camera confiscated, and my stomach turned with dread. The men around me moved like predators, circling, waiting for the command to strike. But then Adrian stepped out of the shadows, and everything shifted. He wasn't what I expected. Sharp jaw, dark hair slicked back, eyes that cut sharper than glass. He looked like he belonged in a magazine cover, not in the underworld. And when he spoke, his voice was low, deliberate, carrying the weight of someone who didn't need to shout to be obeyed. "You took pictures," he said, not a question but a sentence. "Two didn't mean to," I stammered. "It was an accident. I was just, you expect me to believe that?" His lips curved, not quite a smile, more like a blade. And yet, behind that cold mask, there was something else. Something unreadable, a flicker of curiosity maybe. Couldn't look away. He should have ordered my death then. Everyone expected it. I expected it. But instead, he told his men to untie me, to give me back my camera. I didn't understand. Not then. "Go," he said. But there was a weight in his tone that made it clear. I wasn't free. Not really. And I wasn't. Because from that night on, I dreamed about him. About his eyes, his voice, about the way danger looked so human on his face. Weeks passed. I tried to go back to my life, but New York felt different. Every corner held a shadow that reminded me of him. And then one night, he appeared again, not in a warehouse, not with men holding guns, but outside the cafe where I worked part-time. He walked in like he owned the place. In a way, maybe he did. My hands shook as I served him coffee, my throat dry as he smirked at my nervousness. "You're terrible at pretending you don't know me," he said softly when I set the cup down. "You're terrible at pretending you're not terrifying." I shot back before I could stop myself. For a second, silence. And then he laughed. A real laugh, warm and unexpected. It broke something inside me, cracked open a piece of him I hadn't seen before. From then, he kept showing up. Sometimes late at night, sometimes in broad daylight. Always watching me, always saying little things that chipped away at my fear. I told myself it was nothing, that he was dangerous, untouchable. But slowly, impossibly, my fear turned into something else. Because beneath the layers of power and crime, Adrian Vega wasn't just a kingpin. He was a man who carried loneliness like a second skin. A man who looked at me like I was something fragile in a world of steel. And I hated myself for wanting him. The first time he touched me, it wasn't dramatic. We were walking near the Hudson River, the city lights dancing on the water, and he reached for my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. I flinched, but I didn't pull away. His hand was warm, steady, grounding. For once, I didn't feel like I was drowning. "You know what this means," he murmured, eyes on the water. "That I've officially lost my mind?" I asked. He smirked, but his thumb brushed my knuckles gently. "That you're in my world now. And once you're in, there's no getting out." I should have let go. I should have run. But instead, I held on tighter. Of course, secrets like ours never stay hidden. The city has eyes, and soon whispers spread. His men grew restless, enemies took notice, and the thin line between love and danger blurred. There were nights we fought screaming, accusing, tearing at each other with words sharp enough to draw blood. I told him I couldn't live in fear, couldn't watch my life turn into his battlefield. He told me I didn't understand, that his world wasn't something you dipped a toe into. But every time, no matter how ugly the words got, we found ourselves back together. Because the truth was undeniable. We needed each other. And maybe that's where the real danger was. Not in the guns, not in the enemies, not in the secrets whispered in the dark, but in the way love made us weak, and stronger, and willing to burn the world just to keep holding each other's hands on the edge of that pier at sunset, where it all began. The thing about falling for someone like Adrian Vega was this. Every day felt like walking on the edge of a knife. One wrong step, one careless glance, and everything could collapse. It didn't take long before the walls started closing in. His world was too loud, too violent, too full of eyes. I noticed them first at the cavemen I didn't recognize, sitting at the back table with coffee they never touched, watching me. At first, I thought they were his men, protecting me. But then Adrian showed up one night, and the way his jaw tightened when he saw them told me I was wrong. Enemies. I remember that night vividly. He stormed behind the counter, grabbed my wrist, and yanked me outside into the cold air. His grip wasn't cruel, but it was urgent, desperate. "Do you want to die?" he hissed. I stared at him, stunned. "What are you talking about?" "They know about you," he snapped, eyes burning. "They've been watching you for weeks. If you keep working here, if you keep pretending like you're just some boy with a job and a camera, you're gonna end up in the ground. Do you understand me?" I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to shove him away, tell him he didn't get to dictate my life. But all I could do was whisper. "And what am I supposed to do, Adrian? Just disappear? Let them win?" His hand trembled where it gripped me, and for the first time I realized he was afraid. Not for himself, but for me. "You don't get it," he said, voice breaking just slightly. "If they can't hurt me, they'll hurt you. And I can't." He stopped, clenched his jaw, swallowed whatever words almost escaped. "You're not safe anymore." And just like that, my life as I knew it was gone. He moved me into one of his safe Usisa penthouse that overlooked the city. It was the kind of place I used to dream about when I was a kid staring at glossy magazines, but inside, it felt like a cage. Luxurious, yes, but still a prison with invisible bars. Adrian tried to make it bearable. He stocked the fridge with my favorite food, left sketchbooks on the table, pretended that I wasn't trapped. But the silence between us grew heavier each day. "Do you regret it?" I asked one night, my voice almost too soft to hear. We were on the balcony, the city glowing beneath us, his arm resting on the railing as he stared into the distance. He didn't answer right away. His jaw tightened, his profile carved by shadows. Finally, he said, "Every day." My chest ached. "Then why keep me here?" He turned to me then, his eyes sharp, pained, vulnerable in a way that cut me deeper than any blade could. "Because letting you go would kill me faster than any enemy ever could." I should have been furious. I should have fought harder. But the truth was, part of me understood. Part of me felt the same way. It wasn't just the enemies outside we had to worry about. Inside his own circle, cracks were forming. His right-hand man, Carlos, didn't hide his disapproval. He looked at me like I was poison, something that would bring Adrian down. One night, I overheard them arguing in the study. "She's going to be your downfall," Carlos said, his voice sharp. "He's not going anywhere," Adrian replied, his tone dangerous. "Adrian, listen to me. You've built everything. Your name, your empire, your power. You can't throw it all away for some boy who doesn't belong in this world. Silence. Then Adrian's voice, low and unyielding. Maybe he's the only thing in this world that's mine. The words seared into me, both a comfort and a curse, because as much as I wanted to believe them, I knew they would cost him everything. The breaking point came on a rainy night. We were supposed to stay in, but Adrian insisted on taking me out just to drive. He said, something normal, something to remind us we weren't prisoners. The city was slick with rain, the streets glowing with neon reflections. For a while, it almost felt ordinary. We talked about stupid things, music, food, the kind of small talk that lovers make when they pretend the world isn't falling apart around them. And then the car slammed into us. It came out of nowhere, a black SUV that rammed into the side, spinning us across the road. Glass shattered, tires screamed, my body thrown against the seatbelt. Before I could process, gunfire erupted. Adrian shoved me down, his body covering mine as bullets tore through the car. His men, always trailing in the shadows, returned fire. The air was filled with chaos screams, shots, the metallic taste of fear. When it was over, the SUV was gone, the street eerily quiet except for the ringing in my ears. Adrian's hands were on me, frantic, searching for wounds. Are you hit? Tell me you're not hit. His voice cracked, panic laced through every word. I'm fine, I gasped, shaking, though my body ached everywhere. He pulled me into his arms, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. I swear, he whispered, his voice breaking, if anything happened to you. In that moment, I realized this wasn't just love. It was obsession, a dangerous, consuming fire that neither of us knew how to put out. After that night, everything changed. He tightened security, wouldn't let me out of his sight. I became both his weakness and his reason to fight harder. And for me, I stopped pretending I could walk away. We were bound, tangled in a story that could only end in one of two ways: destruction or salvation. And yet, despite it all, there were moments of light. Quiet nights where we lay tangled on the couch, his fingers brushing through my hair as if I were something precious. Times when he let the mask fall, when he told me pieces of his past, the boy he once was, the man he never meant to become. I wanted to be a musician, he confessed once, his voice soft, almost ashamed. Before all this, I played guitar. I thought I'd travel, maybe write songs. But then, he shook his head. Life had other plans. Do you still play? I asked. He smiled, small and sad. Not anymore. Music doesn't belong in this world. I reached for his hand, laced our fingers together. Then maybe you just need someone to remind you it still does. His eyes softened, and for the first time, I thought maybe just maybe you could find a way out. But the world doesn't forgive love like ours. And as the whispers grew louder, as enemies drew closer, I realized we were heading straight toward a storm. A storm that would either tear us apart forever, or wash us clean. The storm came faster than either of us expected. For weeks after the attack, the city seemed to breathe heavier, like it knew blood was about to spill. Adrian became sharper, more ruthless. Meetings that once ended with handshakes now ended with gunfire. He came home later, smelling of smoke and steel, and even when he held me, I could feel the weight of 1,000 enemies pressing against his skin. And me? I was suffocating. Not from his love, but from the world around it. Every day was a reminder that I didn't belong here, that I was a fracture in the glass wall he'd built so carefully. But leaving wasn't an option anymore. Not when every shadow outside was a threat, and not when my heart had already chained itself to him. Still, there were cracks between us. Cracks that widened with each argument. You can't keep me locked away like this, I snapped one night, pacing across the penthouse. Rain lashed against the windows, thunder rolling in the distance. I'm not some prisoner you can control. Adrian leaned against the table, his expression tight, his eyes cold in that way that terrified me because I knew it wasn't indifference, it was fear, disguised. Do you think I enjoy this? He asked, voice low but sharp. Do you think I want to watch you disappear into the ground because of me? You don't get to decide for me, I shot back. Maybe I'd rather take the risk than live like a ghost. His hands slammed down on the table, the sound cracking through the room like a gunshot. You don't understand, do you? They will kill you just to make me bleed. And if that happens, his voice broke, the anger slipping into something raw. If that happens, I won't survive it. The silence that followed was louder than the storm outside. He stared at me, breathing hard, his mask slipping, and for the first time, I saw just how fragile he really was beneath the steel. And damn, May couldn't hate him for it. But the storm didn't wait for us to reconcile. It struck in the form of betrayal. Carlos, I should have seen it coming. The disdain in his eyes, the way he lingered too long in the shadows, watching me like I was a splinter under his skin. But I didn't, and by the time I realized, it was already too late. It was a Tuesday when Adrian didn't come home. Hours stretched into dawn, my phone buzzing with silence. Panic clawed through me, but before I could act, the door burst open. Carlos and two of his men stormed in. You, he spat, eyes burning with hatred. You're the reason he's weak, the reason he's slipping. I stumbled back, my heart slamming against my ribs. Where is he? Where he belongs, Carlos sneered. Cleaning up the mess you created. And when he's done, when he finally realizes what you are, he'll thank me for getting rid of you. The men lunged. Rough hands grabbed my arms, dragging me toward the door. I kicked, fought, screamed Adrian's name like he could somehow hear me across the city. But it was useless. They took me to the docks. The air was thick with salt and diesel, the waves slapping against the wooden posts like a countdown. Carlos shoved me to my knees, his gun pressing cold against my temple. You don't deserve him, he hissed. You're nothing, a nobody. And when you're gone, he'll remember who he is. Terror froze me. My life flashed in fractured images, me mother's smile. The first photo I ever took, Adrian's hand brushing mine at the pier. And then, through the haze of fear, anger sparked. Maybe I'm nothing, I spat, my voice trembling. But at least I gave him something you never could. Carlos's jaw tightened, rage flaring in his eyes. His finger twitched on the trigger and then chaos exploded. Gunfire ripped through the air, shouts echoing across the dock. Adrian's men swarmed in, bullets flying, shadows colliding in a storm of violence. And at the center of it, like a force of nature, was Adrian. His eyes locked on mine, wild with fury and fear. He tore through Carlos's men like a storm, relentless, unstoppable. When Carlos grabbed me, pressing the gun harder against my head, Adrian froze. Let him go, Adrian growled, his voice deadly calm. Carlos sneered. You've lost your edge, Vega. All because of him. Look at you begging for a boy who doesn't even belong here. Adrian's jaw clenched, his eyes burning like fire. He belongs with me, and if you touch him again, I'll make sure you regret ever breathing. For a moment, the world balanced on a knife's edge. And then I acted. I slammed my head back into Carlos's chin, pain exploding across my skull but buying me a split second. The gun slipped, and Adrian moved like lightning. One shot. Carlos crumpled. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. The gun clattered into the water, the waves swallowing it whole. Adrian was at my side instantly, his hands gripping my face, his eyes frantic. Are you hurt? Tell me you're okay. I'm fine, I whispered, though my whole body shook. He pulled me into his arms, holding me like he could fuse us together. Like if he let go, I'd vanish. And for the first time, I realized just how far he'd go for me. After that night, nothing was the same. Carlos's betrayal had cut deeper than any enemy's bullet. Adrian was colder now, more guarded, but with me he was softer, almost too soft, as if he was terrified I'd break. And me? I couldn't forget the look in his eyes on that dock. The desperation, the fear, the love. We spent nights curled together on the couch, saying nothing, just listening to the city outside. Sometimes he played with my fingers absent-mindedly, as if reminding himself I was still there. Sometimes I traced the scars on his skin, wondering how many more he'd collect before this was over. But the truth gnawed at us both. This couldn't last. His enemies were circling closer, his empire cracking under the weight of war. And me very day I stayed, I painted a bigger target on his back. One night, I whispered the words I'd been too afraid to say. Maybe I should leave. His body went rigid, his hand tightening on mine. Slowly, he turned, his eyes wide, almost panicked. Don't, he said, voice breaking. Don't you dare say that. I'm making things worse. You're the only thing keeping me alive, he snapped, pulling me closer. His forehead pressed against mine, his breath shaking. You think I can do this without you? You think I want to? My throat closed, tears burning behind my eyes. Adrian, I'll burn this city to the ground before I let them take you, he whispered, his voice fierce, raw. You're mine. Do you understand? Mine. And in that moment, I knew there was no leaving. Not because he wouldn't let me, but because I couldn't. Even if it destroyed us both. But destruction wasn't just looming, it was already here. Whispers turned into threats. Threats turned into attacks. And at the center of it all, Adrian stood unyielding, his empire collapsing piece by piece. I watched him fight, watched him bleed, watched him harden into a man who belonged more to war than to me. And I knew, with a clarity that shattered me, that if something didn't change soon, we wouldn't survive this. And yet, even as the city closed in, we held onto each other tighter. Because love, no matter how dangerous, was the only thing left keeping us from drowning. The storm wasn't over. The worst was yet to come. And when it did, it would demand everything from user love, our loyalty, maybe even our lives. The city had turned into a war zone by the time winter rolled in. Blocks of Manhattan became territories, lines of control drawn by men with guns instead of maps. Every night, the news ran stories about disappearances, fires, explosions. And every night, I lay awake in Adrian's bed, listening to his voice on the phone, his words clipped and dangerous, the smell of gunpowder following him home. I'd stopped asking him when it would end. We both knew the truth. This only ended two ways. The pressure on us was unbearable. My presence had already cost him men, alliances, whole chunks of his empire. And yet he wouldn't let me go. Wouldn't even consider it. Sometimes, when he thought I was asleep, I'd hear him whisper things in Spanish under his breath. Little prayers, maybe. Please. Promises. I'd turn over and pretend I hadn't heard, because the truth was, I was praying too. The night everything broke started quiet. Too quiet. We were in the penthouse, the city glittering below, snow falling like ash against the windows. Adrian had poured us wine. He'd even smiled, a small, tired curve of his lips that almost made me believe we could be normal for one night. I'm going to end it, he said suddenly, his voice low. I looked up. End what? All of it. The business. The fighting. I'm done. He stared into his glass like it held the future. I'll take the money we have left, disappear. With you. Somewhere no one can find us. My heart leapt and sank all at once. Is that even possible? A flicker of something hope maybe crossed his eyes. It has to be. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. For the first time in months, I saw the boy beneath the Kingpin, the one who'd once wanted to be a musician. But the world didn't care about our plans. The first explosion knocked the lights out. The second shattered the windows. Men poured in through the stairwell, black shapes with guns raised, and in an instant the penthouse became a battlefield. Adrian grabbed me, shoving me behind the kitchen island as bullets tore through the walls. His own men, stationed outside, returned fire, but it was chaos. Smoke, screams. Stay down, he barked, pulling a gun from his jacket. I'm not leaving you, I shouted back over the gunfire. You don't have a choice. He spun, firing into the shadows, his body a shield between me and the bullets. But there were too many. A figure emerged from the smoky, a man in a long coat. His face shadowed but his voice cold and clear. It ends tonight, Vega. Adrian froze. Mateo. Even I'd heard the name. The one rival no one touched. The ghost in every rumor. The man who'd once been Adrian's mentor before turning enemy. Mateo's gaze flicked to me. So this is the reason you've been bleeding men for months. Leave him out of this, Adrian snarled, raising his gun. Mateo smiled faintly. Oh, I will. After you're dead. He raised his own weapon, but I moved before I could think. I lunged out from behind the island, shoving Adrian aside just as the shot rang out. Pain tore across my shoulder, white hot, and I hit the ground. No! Adrian's voice cracked. He fired back, a roar of gunfire echoing through the room. Mateo fell, his coat darkening with blood, but not before his men surged forward. Adrian was a storm, tearing through them with a fury I'd never seen before. But by the time the last one fell, the penthouse was a ruin and I was bleeding on the floor. He dropped to his knees beside me, his hands pressing against the wound, his eyes wild. Stay with me. Do you hear me? Stay with me. I'm fine, I whispered, though I wasn't. The world tilted, my vision swimming. I'm fine. Don't you dare, he said, his voice breaking. Don't you dare leave me. I reached up, my fingers brushing his cheek. Run, I murmured. You have to run. But he shook his head, tears streaking down his face. Not without you. I don't remember much after that. Sirens, maybe. Shouting. Darkness. When I woke, it was in a hospital far from the city. Snow covered the world outside, and the air smelled like antiseptic. My shoulder ached, but I was alive. And so was Adrian. He was sitting by my bed, his suit gone, his hair messy, his eyes red. For a moment, he just stared at me, his hand trembling as it reached for mine. You're awake, he breathed. I swallowed, my throat dry. We made it. He nodded. It's over. I didn't believe him at first. But then he told me. Mateo was dead. His organization dismantled. Adrian had used the chaos to disappear, to burn the last of his empire to the ground. We're ghosts now, he said softly. No one's looking for us. We're free. Free. The word felt foreign, fragile. What happens now? I asked. He smiled, small but real. Now we live. We left New York the next morning. No bodyguards, no shadows trailing us. Just two men with too much past and a chance at a future. We drove south, through small towns and empty roads, until the city was just a memory in the rearview mirror. For the first time in years, Adrian looked at peace. He held my hand on the steering wheel, humming a tune under his breath, something soft, something that might have once been a song. When we reached the ocean, he parked the car and we walked down to the water. The sky was pale gold, the air smelling of salt and new beginnings. I turned to him. You really gave it all up? He nodded. Every last piece. Do you regret it? He looked out at the horizon, the wind in his hair, and for a long moment he didn't answer. Then he said, No, because for the first time in my life, I'm not afraid. He reached for me then, pulling me close, his forehead resting against mine. I don't know what the future looks like, he murmured, but I know I want it with you. And under that sky, with the ocean stretching endless before us, I kissed him. Not like we were running from the world, not like it was stolen or dangerous, but like it was ours. Weeks later, we settled in a quiet coastal town. Adrian became Adrian Vega, the man, not the Kingpin. He fixed cars at a local garage. I opened a small photography studio by the beach. People knew us as the quiet couple in the house with the blue shutters. No one asked questions. No one knew. Sometimes, at night, we'd sit on the porch, watching the sun melt into the sea. He'd bring out an old guitar he'd found at a thrift shop and play softly, the music drifting over the waves. See, I tease. Music still belongs in your world. He'd smile at me, that small secret smile that was just ours. Only because you're in it. And though the ghosts of our past lingered, though the scars never fully faded, we were here, alive, together, because love had survived. Even in the dark. Especially in the dark. On the anniversary of the night we met, we went back to the pier. Different ocean, different city, but the same golden light. He stood beside me, his hand brushing mine, and for a moment it felt like the world had circled back to give us another chance. "I never thanked you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For saving me," he murmured. "Not from Mateo, from myself." I smiled, leaning my head against his shoulder. "You saved me too." We stood there, two men who had once been strangers on opposite sides of a lens, now bound by something stronger than fear. And when the sun dipped below the horizon, we walked away together, leaving the past behind like footprints in the sand. Our story wasn't perfect. It wasn't clean or easy, but it was ours. And in a world that had tried to break us, that was enough. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.